Welcome to Untying Knots, Minds and Souls Untethered with Perry Clark. This program looks at mental health from unique perspectives and shows you how to manage your life by finding the knots that help you and stay away from the ones that could be a disadvantage. Now, here is your host, Perry Clark.
Hello all, welcome back to Untying Knots, Minds and Souls Untethered. I'm Perry Clark, licensed marriage and family therapist, here with you. And I want to remind you that this podcast is for education and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute working with a licensed mental health professional. Please seek that out in your area and take care of the unique issues that are for you. So in today's podcast, again, we're meeting a friend that I've known for quite a while because we met while working together probably when I was still when I was in undergrad years, but we've stayed in contact and their skills have blossomed, just as I found mine being more of a therapist than working in an art field. But they became a source of some work that I'm hoping you will enjoy and you'll pass along that we're working on together. So I want to introduce you to Marcus Webb. Marcus Webb is a visionary composer, sound designer, and acoustical consultant known for their innovative work at the intersection of music, wellness, and immersive sound environments. With decades of experience across various mediums, Marcus has built an impressive career as a versatile composer and sound creator with a deep passion for the intersections of music, wellness, and sound environments. With years of experience in both the music industry and sound design, Marcus has built a diverse portfolio that spans from creating immersive soundscapes to scoring films and audio consulting. Just make sure that's do not disturb as you're hearing that little part of the background. Marcus's holistic approach to sound is rooted in his deep understanding of psychoacoustics and is passionate about ensuring that the therapeutic benefits of sound reaches those who need it most. He believes in the power of sound not only to heal, but to transform the way we experience our environments. Marcus's work as a composer includes scoring silent movie, a short film centering around the disappearance of women in Juarez, Mexico, as well as the documentary Obama in Ghana, The Untold Story. His compositions have also been featured in popular television shows like MTV's The Real World and Road Rules. As a sound designer, Marcus has collaborated with numerous engineering firms, bringing his experience to sound design to enhance architectural spaces through both bespoke sound environments. Beyond these endeavors, Marcus continues to push boundaries in the realms of music, sound design, and environmental acoustics, always striving to create audio experiences that resonate with the soul while advancing the science of sound. So, Marcus, welcome to Untying Knots, Minds and Souls Untethered.
Thank you, Perry. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it, and I'm happy to be here.
And I'm happy we were able to start working together again.
Yes, absolutely.
So as I always like to ask my first question to everybody is, how did you get here?
How did I get to this point? Long journey that has really had a lot of, winds and turns in it. I've always had a deep connection with sound and music from an early age, but my journey has evolved significantly over time. My career started with a focus on music composition and performance, which eventually grew into a broader exploration of sound design and its impact on people. Over time, I began to notice the effects that sound and music have on mental health and well-being, particularly within urban communities where access to wellness resources is often limited. This realization motivated me to work with sound in a way that could make a tangible difference in people's lives beyond the performative, beyond entertainment or aesthetics. I've worked in various fields from acoustic consulting, as you noted, and film composing, but the through line has always been my passion for how sound can transform environments and enhance well-being. And this has led me to projects like NeuroVibe, the project we're working on together, of course, which I'm excited to be developing with you. It's about creating accessibility, bilateral and brainwave music specifically for brown and black communities where wellness resources often don't reach as easily. And this feels like a natural culmination of my life's work in both music and sound design.
Exactly. Because I know as I sort of look at, and I've listened to others and during various trainings, especially ones that are focused very much towards people of color, or as some people say, global majority, the feeling that the music and the sort of, shall we say, spa aspect of the music don't exactly reflect the nature of everybody that is of color. And especially that sense of there are just certain, shall we say, tones that, especially in our cultures, that create resonance that allow us to feel comfortable.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, even, sometimes I liken our experience as people of color in terms of sound and how it affects us almost, and the accessibility of that. I look at it a lot of times just like I did as me being a student of music. You know, there are many things that I have reached for and still reach for as a music practitioner in this life. But certainly, especially when I was younger, there were definitely I wouldn't necessarily categorize it as highbrow concepts or
Mm-hmm.
things that seemed so far reaching from anything that I could grab. It really mentally and emotionally disenfranchised me. Now, as I um, became influenced by other people, some of those creators, musicians and not musicians, some of those creators are of color and are not. But once I started to learn about their stories, investigate their art practices and methodologies, try to understand where they were coming from in regard to particular work. It inspired me, obviously, to break from that very limiting idea. But that limiting idea came from the fact that there felt like there were things that were beyond me and there wasn't anyone around sort of breaking those down for me and saying, oh no, you can have this. Oh no, this is for you. Oh no, this can affect you positively too. So it's really interesting. I personally find a connection between that experience that I had and the accessibility of wellness in regards to the auditory
Mm-hmm.
for our community. So I obviously, as a young music student, hated those things, right? That felt like they were beyond me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think me sort of finding the connections between that and this and working really hard to um, not it there's always going to be a price of entry, so to speak. There's always going to be a step that you need to take forward in order to get whatever it is that you want. In this case, when it comes to creating this music, it's about really being able to accept it and embrace it and, really dig into get the benefits from that. And I think that making that accessible to people is really important. It's I think it's part of the main key in being able to spread the message of sound being uh, healing and edifying for our community in not just the performative aspect. I went to go see a show and I had a great time, but literally as a tool.
Oh, precisely. And the fact that even some would say the soundtracks of our lives are ways of how
Mhm.
to, if not being able to put the words to it, but that emotional weight of what's going on in our lives. Because we're all going to hear some kind of soundtrack in ourselves or songs that we've heard that sort of just fit the mood we were in. And I know that sometimes some of the things I've sometimes used with clients that is like, especially usually younger ones, but even when I'm talking to other adults, there are points where I'm here listening to their story and suddenly I hear a song in my head. And
Yeah.
one of the particular ones I know I've said to a few clients that counseling, especially those who have had relationships break up, I'm hearing Tracy Chapman's Fast Car in my head often. And so it's like we're talking about how that's also translating into what's being experienced, the context to be able to identify with it.
Yeah, and I think that, it's really important to, I think it's really important to kind of embrace all kinds of ideas about music being a healing agent in our lives. You mentioned, a particular piece of music, and obviously the lyrics of that particular song resonate in many, many different ways for many different people. And that can definitely make someone realize that they're not alone. And that's a good thing. For the music that I create and what we're doing with our NeuroVibe project here is, this music is not vocal
Right.
focused, and the healing aspects of the music are much more internal. But again, that whole, leap that you might have to take or step that you might have to take towards wellness, you know, I just think it's really important to kind of understand that there are many ways that sound can help heal. There are many different ways that sound can help edify people and their in their lives. And I feel like, you know, vocals is one thing, and sounds and frequencies used intelligently and thoughtfully and scientifically, in many cases, can really help make the difference.
Right.
And also, the wonderful thing that I also love about what I do is, in this project that we're doing together, we're focusing on making wellness through sound more accessible to urban communities. And I think that it's really important to really understand that one of the most powerful things about this music and why it's healing is with vocal music, someone is telling you a story. Now, there are many, 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 many stories in this world that we live in this world, in this life, at this time. But when a story is dictated to you, when a story is read to you, well, that's the story, right? Once you hear the story, once you have watched the movie, then you sort of sit back at that point. You never do it while you're watching the movie or reading the book. If it's exciting enough, you'll feel like you'll miss something if you do some introspection, kind of, what does this mean to me? But when you listen to instrumental music, again, particularly instrumental music that's made for this purpose, the frequencies are there, the sound is there, and it's the only story that's ever being talked about is yours. The only experience that matters is yours. If you hear a pop singer talking about how they left a relationship left them, they feel really good, they feel really bad. I mean, whatever it is, that is the story. And that might not be yours. And so I think that it's really important to highlight, and we've talked about this many times, to highlight instrumental music, and particularly this music that's designed for this purpose, as being really more of a healing agent as opposed to performative or entertaining. Music can be used to heal, music can be used to entertain, music can be used to teach.
Yep.
Even during the riots of 2020, and people really standing up in the face of a remarkably difficult time, particularly in our country, regarding COVID, but also regarding reactions um, over violence, and racially motivated violence. Obviously, I'm talking about George Floyd and others.
Hmm.
Um, Sound can even be used as a weapon. There were many cases of sound being used to, if sound is projected in a way at a particular volume, at a very, 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 very loud volume, it hurts.
Yep.
So sound can even be used as a weapon. So there are many different aspects to this, and we are really honing in on something particular that can really be helpful to our community. And so, yeah, I find that exciting.
Perfect. So to that end, because I know some people are probably now becoming more fascinated by what we're talking about here, could you give us a sort of a definition more of what is psychoacoustics? And then from
Hmm.
there, let's talk about bilateral and brainwave.
Well, sure. Psychoacoustics it's really simple. You can just think of it as how and why, but really how we react to sounds in our environment, most notably, right? The sounds that go on in our environment that we may not even realize is having an effect on us. If you go, let's say you work, and this is a situation that I work with on a regular basis. Let's say you go to work in a office environment, and let's say that office environment is almost too quiet, almost eerily quiet. You'd be
Hmm.
amazed at how that can do a number on your psyche. You don't want to be there. You feel like people are watching you, even though it might be three of you on one floor, because, again,
Hmm.
the effects of COVID, right?
Right.
Less office space is being utilized. So, you might be on a floor with six people. And, prior to COVID, you were on the floor with 30. And so what can we do about that? Then you can look at another situation, and you can look at I used to work for I worked for a consulting firm at one point, and one of the founders would constantly come out of his office yelling and screaming about something. You'd be amazed at what that will do to you. And they might not be yelling at you or anything that you did at all. But just being in that environment sonically, you'd be amazed at the effect that it has on you, and it's not a favorable one. And so
Hmm.
psychoacoustics is about looking at those things and trying to create, or really design, um, better solutions for that. And there are a number of different things that you could look at based on what's going on in your environment. Same thing with bilateral music, with music that's made for health and wellness in a big general way. It's almost doing it practically is doing the exact same thing. It's taking a look at, when you're investigating this, is this something for me? What is this anyway? I've never heard of
Hmm.
this. What is this? It's basically taking a look at how sound can affect us positively, affect our health positively, and affect our mental outlook positively. So it's the study of that. And in me being a creator of this music, it would be a creation of that. So.
Hmm. Right, because I know there's the work that's been done in other mediums, such as the aspect of the effects of water and the way that it would then freeze according to the vocal tones and words that were being spoken in front of it. That love created a much more beautiful structure versus the structure that was being pitched at it, which were angry tones. So this then also translates to, in many ways, and some would say this sounds woo, the water that's inside of our bodies. What is the energy frequency it's moving with, and how is that helping us heal versus being disruptive. And we apply this in what we're, especially in brain spotting, we use bilateral music, but bilateral music is another one that's being used to help with that processing around the experiences that people have had.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that everybody has a different experience with music and sound. And I
Mm-hmm.
think with this project, you talked earlier, and I think this is a really important thing to sort of, keep in mind. I've been very influenced by many musicians and composers that some might say, maybe some of them, like a Steve Halpern, for example. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, he's basically known as one of the fathers of what we call New Age music and relaxation or meditation music. But I'm also
Mm-hmm.
very inspired by like minimalist composers like Harold Budd and of course Brian Eno post before and after science, where he really started didn't make another vocal type singer
Mm-hmm.
songwriter type of record for 20 years because he focused on ambient music.
Mm-hmm.
And I really love Terry Riley, Pauline Oliveras. All of these people have had a very big effect on what I think is really cool and worth digging into musically and
Mm-hmm.
compositionally. However, you know if I am going to use the example of trying to create wellness music, wellness music for everybody. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that those composers and their music don't serve everyone. That is not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that I think it is really interesting to take methodologies about music that are thought of as being either high art or simply performative
Mm-hmm.
and create a environment where again it's that accessibility.
Right.
Listen, if you're a young kid and your primary experience in regards to music is listening to your favorite hip hop artist,
Mm-hmm.
and let's say there are some issues in school, there are some issues at home, and it has been decided that there is a certain amount of therapeutic investigating that needs to go on because there are issues, right? Let's
Right.
make you feel better. Let's see what's going on. Let's drill down a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're trying to use sound to help that individual, I do not think that it would be the most I don't think that it would be the most encouraging thing to just slap on some meditative music or just slap on some, I mean, like, what are you going to do? You're going to play, Eno's, music for airports for the kid?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you
Right.
can. You
Right.
can. Now, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. That's probably playing in 9,000 spas right now as we speak, right now.
Right.
But I think that if you could take that idea and you could bring it kind of closer musically to maybe something that that individual has been exposed to, I think
Mm-hmm.
you run a much higher a chance of it really resonating.
Right.
And
Because
resonance is important.
yeah. Well, because also it's like then beyond Western globalization, worldwide, we all live with various different ambient presences. And while we do, nature is our greatest one of them. How does that blend in with a hip hop track with a sound of a river brook in it? Or how does that sound with the sounds of a bird song as well? The blend of the
Right.
two.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And just, I mean, there are many different aspects of creating wellness music, biophilic,
Hmm.
way of doing that.
So
Um,
explain biophilic, please.
okay, yeah, sure. So biophilic is sounds around us. So if I go and do a field recording and I go to the closest river here, and I just sit there for an afternoon and get tons of recordings, which of course I've done, and then taken that and interacted with some of the more electronic ways, if you will,
Hmm.
digital ways, if you will, that I create music either through synths or, a variety of different tools that I use. That is bringing, the environment into what I'm creating. So it's not just, these slick, smooth synth chords that you
Hmm.
hear in the background, but it's also, as you mentioned, birds, or it could be a stream, or it could be many different things,
Hmm.
yeah, many different things and many different, aspects that you could use in our
Right.
environment.
Right.
And when we ground ourselves using these sounds, well, that's the whole thing. These sounds help ground us. These sounds help uh, bring us back to a place of calm.
Right. And especially with the more when I'm working with clients and I'm using the audio tracks with them, it is in conjunction with their nervous system, within conjunction of their sensory system. Find it's actually been very useful for my clients that have had ADHD as a way of sort of quieting, giving white noise to at least one of the tracks or one of the sensory tracks, which allows them to tune in on other places, which is part of the same principle we have with people who use fidgets. It's a way of taking one of these points of information and quieting it.
Yeah, and really taking really taking the word biophilic and biophilia, which means a love of life, a
Mm-hmm.
love of living things, and just using that principle to incorporate elements is really unifying, and I think is really helpful and great. If you tie that
Mm-hmm.
back to technology and urban music development, particularly hip hop. And even now, it's kind of like bled into many
Mm-hmm.
different styles, but the whole idea of sampling,
Mm-hmm.
well, taking that same idea, but having it be, really focused around nature and then adding
Mm-hmm.
those elements in can be very grounding experience.
Right. And that's some of what we're trying to create with, especially when I can say when with this with the NeuroVibe program we're trying putting together, as that is available for people to be able to use, to not just especially for my fellow therapists out there, to be able to incorporate in helping your client process into their emotions, into their feelings, and find calm there. But equally, this music is also useful for creative purposes too, because I know there's times I'll put that on and I'll go to work on something beyond, say, just classical music, because there's just
Hmm.
times where what I'm working on doesn't fit a classical music
Hmm.
vibe.
Hmm.
Uh, but this does when I'm sitting there, uh, even sometimes balancing the checkbook
Yeah.
aspect of it, to be able to feel like there is a rhythm, there is a purpose, but that is, I'm actually working at a higher level than what I would with all the rest of the noise in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that I mean, I am very happy that you feel that way about our project. I certainly, want others to feel that way too. But yes, I think the idea is you put this on in the background and then you focus on what it is that you want it to mean for you or be for you. And that could be simply it going on in the background while you're balancing the checkbook, or it could be you're going to sit in lotus position and meditate for 30 minutes. And let me relax myself and put myself in a state and vibration of, positivity and productivity in the
Mm-hmm.
car ride on the way to work.
Mhm.
There are many, or let me relax myself because I've got to now stand up on a bus for 40 minutes to get from downtown to uptown or uptown to downtown where I live from work. And,
Right.
being a commuter for many years, I mean, yeah, some of us very much know the reality of taking public transportation. And, something that can soothe you while you go through that experience, which isn't always pleasant,
Mhm.
it could be very edifying.
Exactly. And especially with trying to deal with the way our nervous systems are dealing with the world today, they need every respite they can to be functional.
Hmm.
So I,
Absolutely.
yeah, so I think that's a perfect place for us to take a break here. So stay tuned, folks. We'll be back for the second half, and we may have a little treat for you as well. So I'm Perry Clark, licensed marriage and family therapist, here with Marcus Webb, acoustic designer and sound designer. Stay tuned, folks.
Voice America is on LinkedIn. Connect with us today.
Do you have knots? Not the physical tightness in your neck and back, and not the ones on a rope, but metaphors for the helpful and unhelpful tugs in life that can help us ascend to a new level or stop us from falling too far back down. Join host Perry Clark for Untying Knots, Minds and Souls Untethered, a program about mental health and its practice from an Indigenous person of color. We'll help you find the knots that help you and avoid the ones that don't. Listen for new episodes every other week on the Voice America Empowerment Channel.
Find out what makes the most successful people tick. Keep listening to the Voice America Empowerment Channel. VoiceAmericaEmpowerment.com.
Become a member of VoiceAmerica.com. It's easy, and best of all, it's free. Start out by going to our homepage or any of our channels and click register at the top. Once you've created an account and signed in, you can create your own custom library, opt into our newsletter, search by show, host, guest, or topic of interest, or browse millions of hours of content across all of our Voice America radio channels. Membership gets you more. Visit VoiceAmerica.com today to get started and tailor the listening experience to your taste.
You are listening to Untying Knots, Minds and Souls Untethered. If you have a question or comment about our podcast, send an email to pclark@untyingknotspodcast.com. That's pclark@untyingknotspodcast.com. And now, back to the program.
Hello, all. Welcome back to Untying Knots, Minds and Souls Untethered. I'm Perry Clark, licensed marriage family therapist, here with you. And with me is Marcus Webb, composer, acoustical designer, sound designer. And we've just been talking in our first half about our project NeuroVibe, which is psychoacoustical music to be used in primarily the therapy process, but it can also be used by the general public as well. And I strongly suggest it for the if you want to do creative projects, as opposed to using the psychoacoustical music while you're in your therapy, which I do strongly recommend you do that with a licensed professional who also supports the use of music in their practice. But in the meantime, and just because I know there's just that curiosity about the work you do, Marcus, can you tell us a little more about sound design, sound composing, just for those who might be interested to explore it both as a career and maybe as a hobby?
To music. First of all, I had no idea that I would be going down this road. So when I first got into music, first of all, I've been playing guitar since I was 5 years old. I'm 51 this year. So that's a long time to be playing a particular instrument. And that branched out into pretty much all of the what I would call the guitar family of instruments. Not necessarily family because they're tuned the same way, but family in terms of your body is situated around the instrument in a very similar way. A mandolin player will sit with the back end or butt of the guitar on their leg. And surely a guitar player will do the same thing. And a banjo player will do the same thing. And an oud player will do the same thing. So that's what I mean. And those instruments that I just, named, I play all of them. So basically, if it looks like a guitar or it's kind of shaped like a guitar, in which one arm is strumming and the other one is either fretting notes, or you're putting your hand or fingers on the neck or the fretboard. It's an instrument that I've probably most likely investigated and or currently play in a somewhat active way. So that's kind of how I started. I started as an instrumentalist. And, education wise, I did study in school. I was a self-taught guitar player until I entered high school and interviewed. Well, I did a audition and got into the school. The school I went to was the performing arts high school that I went to is a school called Duke Ellington School of the Arts. It's in Washington, D.C. It is still around. But when I went to it, it was more like as a matter of fact, it was almost exactly like the hit show in the 80s, Fame. So it was privately run at that time. And so the educational day ran from 9 to 5, which was an extraordinary thing for a high school student and got me very ready to have a 9 to 5 job, although I did not really see myself doing that because I thought I was going to be the next great jazz guitar player. And as time went on and I investigated more and became and fell in love with different music of different parts of the world, particularly Africa, Asia, and the Middle East, I really just started to really dive into that. And speaking of those traditions of music and tying this into, well, how in the world did somebody like Marcus, he's just given us a little bit of his background so far, get into wellness? I think it really started with my investigation into music of other cultures, particularly, music of Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. Much of this music, music is thought of as a spiritual activity in many cultures. And that is because the belief that sound can heal, sound can move things, sound can, change things is something that is very prevalent in the musical histories and cultures of those regions. And I think that that's kind of where it started for me, particularly with my fascination with music from India. And so that kind of started everything in terms of me investigating other areas of the world. And so that's kind of how that begun for me, how it turned full on to maybe more of a psychoacoustics, in that I really started to care about sound, music, and environments and how it affects people, is that was through my journey as a musician, literally trying to work. I had done many gigs, done many recordings, I'd been on tour, but I got consistent opportunities to investigate the application of my expertise in sound and music in other ways that were not performative. And so, So me doing that, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just about to say, and that's why I came to you with this idea and project.
Well, it's getting into that kind of work, having a company come in, having a architect or, space designer come to me with ideas of how they would like to fill the space up with sound. and thinking about that environment and thinking about what people are doing in it and how my originally compositions would serve that purpose. Then I started getting into, and at this point in my career, just side note to people who are listening and interested in possibly involving yourself in this as well. You know, at this point in my career, now I'm sort of teaching myself things, learning programming languages like Max MSP, using different software packages to create music that is now generative, which is a whole nother a whole nother subject matter for another day. But basically, I started creating environments, be it my original composition or through programming and synthesis, but creating environments that were sonically immersive and sound art installations, basically. From that, I just started to continue to do this and continue to do this and continue to do this, and that's where I find myself today. You know, how do people respond to sound? And what can I do to create environments that are conducive to wellness, relaxation, health? Yeah. So that's, you know, it's kind of, it's all over the place. So when I get questions like that, like, you know, how do you get into this? How do I get into this? If I were to give you a quick answer to that, it would be, I stayed open constantly. I remember I was working with someone out in California, and I got in their car and we started to have a conversation. And asked them, I said, what is the number one way to be successful? Which is a very big, giant, broad, general question that can have you in a conversation for hours, days. But this individual said to me, keep saying yes. And that is something that I have always kept with me. Yeah. So, you know, take that with it what you will. But I think I've always been saying that. I've always been a musician that has always prided myself in really embracing improvisation. Improvisational ways of composing, improvisational ways of figuring out how to answer the call of challenges in the environment, challenges in my own musical practice. And I think in constantly saying yes, I have found the most out of this world opportunities that I find myself so grateful to be able to be a part of. And I don't think that if I was the kind of musician where I was the kind of musician I was before. You know, coming from a jazz background, I said to myself decades ago, I wanted to be the next Alan Holdsworth. I wanted to be the next David Torn. I wanted to be the next, you know, Bill Frisell. I think that if I continued to want to have my aspiration be to be like other people, which of course you can't because they are them and you are you. But there are people in this world artistically who try very hard to do that. And they have assimilated the language, if you will, of another artist very poignantly. And it is their own, and they're very inspired by that. And I'm not knocking that. But what I am saying is that if I was one of those people, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. I wouldn't be doing the things that I'm doing. I would certainly probably not be interested in psychoacoustics at all, beyond me stepping into a room with an instrument, and that room better sound good enough for people to know that I'm incredible at what it is that I'm doing, which is the extent of 80% of musicians out there that are performing. They don't care anything about the nature of how sound affects people. They don't care anything about the nature of how sound evolves within a space. They just care that that sound will make them sound good. That is really as a performer, that is their primary focus. If that continued to be mine, I would not care about how sound affects people in environments. So keep saying yes.
Put. Yeah, beautifully put. And so in that yes.
And without naming any names, by the way, Perry, that person who told me that used to be our boss. So I'll just leave it at that. I know that when I do that, stop you right in your track.
Yep. Well, that was well, more than 10 years ago. That place, at that point in time in life, and when I was much younger.
Yes.
We were both much younger.
We were.
Yep.
And so were they.
Yep. And so in that case, because I know we've been talking about it, and I also want to give the chance for people to know more of your work. Here is a sampling of one of the pieces from our NeuroVibe track for you to enjoy. If you're driving, let it help you get to where you're going. If not, you can also put this track on, and I'll try to put the time code if I can in the show notes so that you can sit and practice with it, whether you're be creative or just trying to get those household chores done. At the end of this, we will have the information in the show notes, information for where you can find this so you can download and support it. Now, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So please enjoy Cerebral. So hope you have enjoyed that, folks. So please, Marcus, where can people find you if they want to find out more and also support our project here?
Yes. So about our project, you can find our project right on SoundCloud. Our project can be found at soundcloud.com/NeuroVibe Brainspotting. So that is the total title of the link, and so you can find us there. You can also find me at Marcus Webb Sound Design on Patreon. You can also find me at marcuswebbsounddesign.com.
All right, we'll have those in the show notes. Marcus, I thank you again for coming on the podcast. I thank you again for working with me on this project, and let's see how many more people can help heal.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And I look forward to continuing to create this music.
Likewise. All right. See you next time, folks. And this has been Untying Knots, Minds and Souls Untethered.
Thank you for tuning in for Untying Knots, Minds and Souls Untethered. Be sure to join your host, Perry Clark, for another episode on the podcast coming soon on the Voice America Empowerment Channel.